this session. Thank you so much. My name is Arnold James. I'm the Executive Director of Career Services for Worldwide Career Services. It's a distinct pleasure to have all of you to join us here today. We have a special treat for you. We've been waiting on this. This is the Career Ready Club, and this is our final event for the fiscal year 2023-24. And it's our pleasure to bring to you a special edition of the Career Ready Club. This Career Ready Club is formatted to basically to connect our students and our alumni with industry professionals. And we have a great panel here today. I'm delighted to introduce our facilitator for today in just a second. First of all, just a quick announcement. We would like to invite you once again, if you're a member of the Career Ready Club, that we will have an in-person event, employer visit at the Airbus and FlightWorks facility in Mobile, Alabama, that will take place next week, May the 10th. May the 10th will be in Mobile, Alabama. If you haven't already signed up, we'll put the link into the chat box so that you can definitely sign up for this. This is a tour that will be done at your own expense. However, we have an exciting tour for you. The coordinator for this tour is a worldwide graduate, and he's also, of course, employed by Airbus, and we're looking for a great time. We'll also have a group lunch there available for you. So again, that's Airbus tour next week, May the 10th in Mobile, Alabama. Please join us. So without further ado, again, it's my pleasure to introduce all of you to the Career Ready Club. And this session today is going to be on the future of aviation safety. And facilitating this awesome session is Dr. Bettina Marusek. She's with the Worldwide Campus as the director, or associate director, I mean, say that title wrong, Dr. Bettina Marusek with the undergraduate studies. So without further ado, turn it over to Dr. Bettina.
Thank you so much, Arnold. So to kick off our discussion at kind of a high level, Kristy, can you share some of the emerging trends within the aviation safety industry and how students can align their careers with those?
Yes, and what I'd like to do actually is to start with a little review of where our industry has been in the past few years, what we have gone through, and where we're headed. So we'll share our screen here, and the industry 5 years ago was in a very different place than it is right now. 5 years ago, and thank you, Nick, you can advance that one. 5 years ago, air traffic was steadily increasing, new aircraft deliveries were steadily increasing, hiring was steadily increasing, aircraft orders had been steady for about the previous 3 years. New captains had about 10 years of experience prior to upgrade. And you'll notice that a word I used there a lot was steady. That's where we were 5 years ago. Then, 4 years ago, air traffic dramatically decreased, literally almost fell off a cliff. I don't know if you ever have had the chance to see TSA throughput from one day to the next during COVID lockdown. I don't like to use the word unprecedented because we've been through a lot of external shocks in this industry, but COVID and the suddenness of its impact was unprecedented. So airlines used that time to refresh their fleets. Workers left the industry in all areas, voluntarily or otherwise. And in the middle of it all, let's not forget that the MAX 8 was grounded and then returned to service. So then 2 years ago, demand absolutely skyrocketed. All that pent-up demand came roaring back. Pilots had to be retrained on different equipment as hiring surged again. That put pressure on training resources. And then we had supply chain problems that were lingering from the COVID pandemic that led to delays in aircraft deliveries. Support for new aircraft was problematic. That put a lot of pressure on maintenance facilities. Flight crews were upgrading extremely rapidly and continuing to upgrade at historic rates. Old software support systems were causing operational issues for airlines. Across the board, mental health concerns were increasing. There were contentious contract negotiations taking place across the industry. There were not enough check pilots available, and we did not have any permanent leadership at the FAA. So 1 year ago, we experienced a lot of near misses. We experienced fatal ground mishaps. We had millions of dollars in ground handling damages. There was an FAA safety summit that was held to address these issues. The FAA Independent Safety Review Team was established, at which we have a member right here. Then just now, in the past couple of months, we've been facing intense scrutiny of our manufacturing processes and the safety culture, and as focus on that, and a growing understanding of the impact of business practices on aviation safety. So in this sort of cheerful description now, we'll look into the future. And this is a March 3rd launch of the SpaceX rocket that took a crew to the International Space Station. So in the future, we're going to have more flights in the same amount of airspace. We're going to have uncrewed aircraft entering the national airspace even more. So rockets are going up, space debris is coming down. We are looking at increased autonomy, single pilot operations, simplified vehicle operations, advanced air mobility. I'm running out of breath. New propulsion systems, pressure for sustainability, the challenge of hotter airports and more extreme weather. We have a lot of challenges in this industry. We have a lot of challenges in safety in particular. Where there's challenges, there's opportunity. So this is a extremely interesting time to be entering the industry. Bettina, you asked about some of the trends, and thank you. We can stop sharing the screen there. You asked about some of the trends. A lot of the trends I think that are in aviation are reflected in the rest of your life as well. Artificial intelligence and the applications of it is going to be an area that is impacting aviation safety, both from a safety critical systems using AI, that's farther down the road, but more proximally using AI tools in data analysis is going to be really important. And that is a really important trend. And if you can get ahead of that in terms of workforce and be at least not, nobody expects people to be programming deep neural networks. But what's important, and what hopefully you're seeing in your courseware, in your curriculum, is to help people understand what can these systems do, what can they not do, what are they good at, and how can we leverage them best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kristy. And to kind of build off of that, can you talk about some of those essential skills that students need as they're entering the industry, and then also what you think that will look like over the next 5 to 10 years?
Do you want to answer that one first?
So you go right ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I think there are some skills that have been important and will remain continuously important, and that will never go out of style. And I know this from speaking to industry, and they seem probably for a student a little bit frustratingly vague, but I can tell you critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and teamwork. And those are things that are consciously embedded in our curriculum. Hopefully, if you look at your syllabus, you can see where they are literally embedded into the curriculum, because those capabilities are agnostic to, it doesn't matter what kind of software programs you're using, it doesn't matter what hardware you're engaging with, the ability to do that is critical. Increasingly, we have distributed teams. So I've been on 2 meetings with yesterday IBM, today with NASA, and in each, when our teams gathered, the IBM people were meeting each other in person for the first time. So were the NASA people, so were we. So we weren't just meeting in between teams that we had not known before. We were meeting each other that we had never met in person before. So I think that's one of the things that when you may not realize as part of that worldwide education, but part of what you are learning is the medium that you're using. So you know how to communicate in a distributed geographical and temporal. We've got, whenever I have classes, the people, if they're going to partner up, they try to pick someone in the same time zone, right? Because just like on this call, Arnold, I loved hearing you talk about all the locations where people are. And that's how work gets done. That's how these multidisciplinary problems in aviation safety are going to get solved, is by having those capabilities for teamwork. So those are some of the kind of evergreen skills that have always been required in aviation safety and always will be. But there are some specific skills that I think are relevant because of the way that the world is changing. And I mentioned AI, which can be one of many things, a buzzword that is completely overused and misused, or something super frightening that, well, that's, as an example, deep neural networks. It sounds like super complicated. All it means is that the layers are literally deep, like they have 4 layers. Otherwise, it'd be a shallow neural network, and then we would all think it was easier to understand. But so those things, it is not as complicated, and it's not esoteric. It is when you understand the basic capabilities, it's kind of like in order to get to the grocery store, I don't need to know to build a car. I just need to know how to drive a car. And so that's what we want to get to, that I think would be extremely valuable for employers, is people who understand and are conversant with the tools and how to use them. And you can start that today. You can download a free ChatGPT, and hopefully many of you on the call already have, and just start using it, start getting familiar. Because, if I am dealing with a human individual and I want to get some information, anybody who has children has probably had this experience before. You ask a question, you get an answer that doesn't make any sense because it's not what you were asking. So you learn to ask it a different way. That's what we have to do with AI systems. We have to learn how to ask it questions, and that just takes practice and iteration. So yes, you are learning that in your curriculum as well in a formal way, but that's something that you can also just learn, through your daily experience, and bringing that ability to your employers, I think, is really important. Because data is so important, especially in aviation safety, everything runs on data. The ability to explain data in a meaningful way. I literally just heard this morning that, how important it is to be able to distill all that for the executive decision maker. And Bettina and I have talked about that before. That skill of taking a complex problem and distilling it down. And I have heard Robert do this many times and that's a true gift and ability, is to be able to put it in the terms that are meaningful and relevant to the person who's getting that message. We talked about that in communication, but it also has a technical component, that if you are able to use software that provides data visualization that will help people see, you can show a bazillion graphs, but if you can't make that one picture have meaning, then the attention has already left that subject. So that's another really just a tangible, practical skill that I think is really important right now.
Excellent, Kristy. Those are such great examples. I know from an undergraduate perspective that we try to incorporate those elements into most, if not all, of our classes. So it's really refreshing to hear. And again, we know aviation is a global industry. So Robert, as the former chair of the NTSB, can you share with our students today a little bit about your career path and what decisions you believe were most critical to your success?
Yeah, thanks. So I started out life in college. I was flight instructing in college, and after college, I got hired by an airline and flew for an airline for 24 years. And then I went to the NTSB for 15 years, and then here at Embry-Riddle. So that's sort of my career path. I think the most important advice anybody ever gave me was actually from my grandfather, who emphasized the importance of doing the things that you really enjoy doing, to follow your passion. And I thought I was going to be an engineer like him and like my dad, but I couldn't add and subtract. And so, that's a problem. So, and I still can't. But he said, that's okay. It's so important to find something that you really love doing. And so therefore, ever since college, I wanted to be an NTSB board member. How do you get appointed by the president of the NTSB, or president of the United States? You just can't say, I want to do this. So what I did is just did those things that I enjoyed doing, whether it was safety work for the company, safety work for the union, writing articles about safety, attending conferences on safety. I did those things that I enjoyed doing, And who knows, you may or may not ever get appointed or end up at that final goal, but you're having a great journey because you're doing the things that you enjoy doing.
Oh, I just love that. I love that, Robert. How wonderful. Robert or Chrissy, this will be for both of you guys. What are some of the practical skills that students can focus on to enhance their employability within the aviation safety industry?
One of the things, and if we're talking about specific skills, one of the things I like to do is whenever through the C.A.R.E.E.R newsletter, which is something I encourage you to sign up for, most aviation safety related jobs will find their way through the C.A.R.E.E.R newsletter at some point. So I have a file, a digital file where I keep them all, and I like to highlight what are the things that they are looking for. So there's some of these will be embedded in your curriculum. In fact, we've tried really hard to make sure that they are all embedded in the curriculum. So what might be more of a challenge as somebody looking to move ahead in this field is not so much, especially from a student perspective, if you haven't done these things in a job yet, the challenge may be not necessarily how to get the skills, because that's why you came to Embry-Riddle and that's what's in your program. The challenge might be how to explain that you have these skills, because they're not, it won't be like responsibilities as the FOQA gatekeeper. You may not yet have that resume bullet. So what you want to do is to be able to translate what you learn in the classroom to demonstrate that you have those skills. So for example, knowledge of regulatory requirements and compliance issues. Now that's something that you'll learn in the classroom, and then don't think that does not count, right? So it's not necessarily something that you have been in a paid position to do yet, perhaps, but you have learned about it. And that's where I would encourage you, as you have assignments where you have some discretion in what you do, create it so that that can be an artifact for you, so that you can actually demonstrate that you worked on a international team, which is what a group project is an international team addressing a particular issue. And if there's some, to Robert's point about, I think that's wonderful advice, always do what you love, because you will gain so much from it if you target your discretionary assignments to things that you love and things that you want to be able to demonstrate that you can do. Well, then you can show that even though you are not like in a regulatory compliance role, but because of this work that you've done, you have this background. And so regulations is a big one. The data sources, you hear me say it 100 times, data in aviation safety, but familiarity with those data sources and the constraints around them, the practical considerations, union involvement, how can you get access to this data? How do you have to ethically protect the data? All of that you can also demonstrate through coursework, through the things that you're able to do. Depending on the part of safety that you want to be involved in, if you are interested in the industrial ground safety perspective, then there are more concrete certifications that you can earn and that would be beneficial if you are interested in that particular area. Whereas in the kind of air side, it's going to be those more global skills that you learn in your curriculum. So regulatory, the data sources, understanding, and this one comes directly from a director of safety at a Part 121 carrier who said, we need people, two things that this group told me, we need people who understand how airlines operate. They understand where, what the structure of the airline is and where you can go to get information that you need. Most of these are huge organizations. Understanding how that is structured is really important. And the other thing, and I apologize that this is not yet in the curriculum because it was so new, but we're going to be putting it in, is cognitive interviewing skills. So that's a very specific thing that being able to get information from people in a non-jeopardy fashion, so that it's not, I'm not investigating you and I'm not, you're the only one at the table without a glass of water, but that trying to understand what led to that decision-making process and trying to understand. So those are some very concrete and specific skills.
I want to tag on to something that you said. Yeah, obviously you have to have some technical skills. If you're going to be an engineer, you obviously have to have an engineering background. If you're going to be a pilot, you obviously have to have the technical skills to be able to fly, technical skills and knowledge. But I want to emphasize what you said a few minutes ago, and that is with the soft skills, the ability to communicate well. And when I talk about communicating, I'm talking about if you can write well, you'll never go hungry. Which a lot of people cannot write. But I've done a lot of writing for a magazine, and one thing's led to another. I think public speaking is a very important skill. And so I think it's important to, yes, in your area, you got to know your area from a technical point of view, but I would also emphasize the importance of strong communication skills.
I could not agree more. And one of the particular areas that we want to provide students some more opportunity is because we hear about the difficulty of selling safety. So programs cost money, initiatives cost money. It's very difficult to provide a concrete, here's the return on your investment. This is the amount of the accident that is not going to happen on February 27th and when 2028. That is difficult to do. So the ability to communicate that, to get buy-in, to bring people along with you, and to be, I think a lot of safety, and you have been an agent of this kind of cultural change, so you can speak to it. A lot of safety is bringing people along on a cultural change journey. So can you talk a little bit about change management and how that, how did you perceive your role in making, because you've been a part of some of these truly significant cultural shifts in the industry?
Yeah, I think that a big issue to getting anything done is that people are not on board with the idea, and it's not invented here. And a friend of mine and I got some pretty good programs developed and implemented at our airline. And one of those programs still lives at American Airlines, a program we developed 25 years ago, and it's being used at Southwest Airlines and Lord knows who else. You've got to get buy-in. And how do you get buy-in? You go and you ask people their opinion. And people want to resist change. But if they're part of the decision process, it's hard for them then to say, oh, I don't like this. So that's a little secret right there, is always ask people for their input.
Excellent, excellent. So in addition to a college degree, how important is it to have additional certifications or professional education?
I'll just start out with that. I do believe that that getting additional training or education is never a bad thing, as long as your lifestyle can accommodate it. If you're working 7 different jobs and you don't have time to go and take an extra course, then that's probably not the best thing to do. But I certainly think that any additional certification, training opportunities, educational opportunities, if it can fit into your lifestyle and not cause too much stress, it's a good thing. I didn't even start my master's until I was a board member at the NTSB. I was probably 55 years old when I started my master's, and had one of the biggest jobs in aviation safety, being a board member of the NTSB. But I made time for it. And I tell you, of many things, I value my Embry-Riddle worldwide education. Put it right up there at the top, because I had to work hard to do it, but I got a lot out of it.
And I think too, when you have the opportunity to be in a classroom, as many of you are right now, it's sometimes easy to forget what a networking opportunity that is. And I sometimes hesitate to use the word networking because it seems very transactional, but what it really is about building relationships. Even though you're only in that virtual classroom for 9 weeks, there, I was telling somebody the other day that I like to, and you probably do the same thing, add up the years of experience. When when you all kindly post your bios and we go through and we learn about our students, it's like 150 years of experience in that classroom. And I like to remind my students, there's somebody in this room is probably in your dream job, and you are probably in somebody else's dream job. And so leverage that. So as important as it is to for the content, because I mean, I'm a huge fan. We're both huge fans of professional education, of coming back not only into like the academic classroom, but sometimes maybe there's just a small thing you want to learn. Maybe you want to learn, Python, or maybe you want to learn safety management systems while you're already learning that. But there's smaller, more targeted niche things that you can do in a professional education setting. And the strength of that worldwide model is that so many students have done these amazing things, and that you can connect with those students and really build, use that as a way to explore career options that you've not personally had.
Yeah, I think your education doesn't have to be formal education. It could be just read a book or read an article to help you learn more about a particular topic. Speaking of Python, I'm still trying to figure out how to do Word.
Okay, so kind of along the same line, because Kristy, you mentioned networking. Are there professional organizations that you guys would recommend that would help students to, again, kind of expose them to some of that really, real world industry knowledge, but then also help them grow their network?
Certainly, I think if you're interested in the aviation safety business, SASI, International Society of Air Safety Investigators, it's like $80 a year, and you get a magazine quarterly. They put on great conferences. So I've been a member of SASI since about 1994, and it's a great organization if you're interested in air safety, accident investigation. Mainly it's oriented towards accident investigation, but that's what I would recommend. International Society of Air Safety Investigators.
The Flight Safety Foundation, obviously, probably many people on this call have already used their C.A.R.E.E.R as a resource, but that both for the events that they put on, for the safety forums that they host, but also just as a resource for information, a central clearinghouse for a lot of different current topics in aviation. I think Flight Safety Foundation is a wonderful resource. I also have already mentioned the Kurt Lewis newsletter that comes out. It seems like 3 times a day from the amount that I have in my inbox, but there's different ones too, depending on if you're particularly interested in maintenance. There's a maintenance newsletter, and it's a sort of a Reader's Digest of all of the interesting things that have been curated and collected, and it's also, because it's so well used, a lot of information can be gleaned just from looking at even if you're just able to kind of read the headlines.
And that costs nothing. That's free. Just sign up for it, and I've been reading that for years and years, and it's great. What is it? Kurt Lewis. What is it? FSI.org. I forget how to sign up for it.
I forget to. It's not kurtlewis.com, I tell you, but
probably Nick, can you Google that, fsi.org, and just see if that
C-U-R-T, Lewis, the common
and we can certainly provide it afterwards
Yes,
as well.
thank you.
We got students that are interested and certainly want to do that. So switching gears just a little bit, have y'all experienced, maybe a really good mentor that helped get you where you are? Do you have any recommendations for students if they're trying to find a mentor in their field?
I'm not sure that this is specifically under the heading of mentorship, but one thing that I would encourage is that you take what you love and are good at and capitalize on that. I really like to write. And so I wormed my way into position writing for Forbes.com. Because I did that, I was then able to basically cold call a lot of people that were very interesting to me, that were doing interesting work. And because I found it interesting, so I thought, well, this readership will find it interesting too. And so then I was able to use that to find those people who were in positions that I found really interesting, and use that as a way to talk with them and communicate with them. And it turns out that was probably not even necessary, but it allowed me to do something that I really enjoyed and use that as a vehicle. But I find make use of LinkedIn, and that is such a powerful tool that we can use to find people who are doing the things that you're interested in, connect with them, follow them, and become engaged with them. And that's probably how many people have found you.
It's true. I do connect with a lot of people on LinkedIn, get a lot of good information. I cannot overstate that I could never have gotten anywhere in life if it weren't for people to pull me along the way. And that's your network of friends. It doesn't necessarily have to be a true mentor, but there are people that have helped me all along the way, and we cannot discount the importance of having a network of people that are going to be there for you, to support you, to push you along. I would not have gone to the NTSB had a friend of mine not told me it was time for me to go for it.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think, fortunately now there's more of a formal emphasis on mentorship, and there's more of a recognition than when I was the age of probably a lot of people on this call. There was not quite that appreciation of the formality of that role. And so for a long time, I didn't think these were mentors. They were people ahead of me who were my role models. So because of that, it kind of developed very organically. And that's good, but it's just like a garden. Sometimes you might have some beautiful things grow, but if you cultivate it, it'll probably grow exactly what you want. So that's what, if I could do it differently, I would probably be a little bit more intentional and reach out a little bit more, because I think I kind of hesitated a little bit that, well, these people seemed important and busy, and, and then but it's an opportunity for the mentor as well. And now being, as the teacher in the classroom, I can see the joy, because I know personally the joy that it brings me from students succeeding. And nothing better, please take note of this, students, there is nothing better than getting an email a month, a year, 4 years after somebody was in your class and they say, hey, I went for it. I applied to that PhD program that you suggested. I made that job change that we talked about. It's worked out great. And that is so rewarding for the mentor, that I realize now that as a mentee, it's not a burden. It's not an imposition. It's a privilege.
Good point. Something that has resonated with me when I was in new hire school to be an airline pilot, in doc school, somebody said this, and I can still remember who it was. One of the instructors said, don't pick your heroes too early in your career. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. They said, you're not going to really understand what we mean now, but maybe you will later. Out of the 10 in my class, I'm probably the only one that remembers that. But it's easy to be impressionable and kind of look around and see who you really want to use as your heroes, your mentors, and it's kind of easy to get sucked into the cool guys, so to speak. But maybe that's not who you want to be. So I don't know. I still remember that from March, or actually February of '81. So
Wow.
So I thought I was going a little bit senile, but I still remember that one.
Absolutely. And, and in my experience, mentors, again, they don't have to be formal, but everyone in this field, everyone in this industry loves it. So I don't think there's anybody that's not going to want to help you out, or who's not wanting to plan their succession, right? Like, who's coming in after me? Because the students that we have today are going to be the leaders that we have tomorrow. So we're kind of helping ourselves really by doing that.
I will say though that it is important to be cognizant of the reason that you chose that person as a mentor is because they are really good and therefore they're really busy. And so it's really, really appreciated to have that kind of mutual recognition of the value of each other's time.
Valid point. Absolutely. So getting a little bit more just really practical, do you have any interview tips? I know for some of these students, especially once they graduate, they're going to be going through the interview process. So please.
Yeah. Let me talk about before the interview, because you may not get the interview. And as an example, we were doing, the Boeing Center for Aviation and Aerospace Safety, we are funding 5 NTSB internships this summer. So just in a few weeks, they will be going to Washington and Seattle to be an intern for 13 weeks at the NTSB. We got like 65 applications. We had to boil that down to 5. And so when I'm going through these resumes, I look at it and I'm looking, honestly, I'm looking to call that list down. And if we say you've got to have a 3.0 GPA and your GPA is not on there, hey, that's just one more that I don't have to mess with. And I know the government is the same way. When you apply for a job at the government, they've got 500 people that want to be air safety investigators, and they need to boil that down to 3 people. And so make darn sure that if it says you've got to have a master's in whatever, or a GPA of this, make darn sure that you make it clear that you have that specific qualification. And I think that's critical, because I was surprised that, even though we specified the GPA, people did not put that on their resumes, their applications.
So easy, just attention to detail, really.
Attention to
And
detail.
and that's why it matters too, is that it isn't, again, the medium is the message here. It's not just that that's left off, it's that it's reflective of attention to detail, which is so critical in our industry.
Well, and speaking of attention to detail, this is an NTSB, it's an intern to work for the National Transportation Safety Board. And somebody wrote that their career goal was to work for the Federal Aviation Administration. So, attention to detail.
Absolutely. Robert, you touched on this a little bit earlier, a little bit about work-life balance. But do you have any suggestions on how students can really, look at the companies that they're considering maybe applying for, and making sure that their values align with the companies?
Yeah, that's so critical. And you want to work for a company where your values are aligned. I once ran a Fortune 500 flight department, left the airline and went to work for a Fortune 500 flight department to run their aviation department. And so the CEO wanted to interview me as the final gate, just to give thumbs up. And I think I was interviewing him as much as he was interviewing me, because I wanted to make sure if I left the airline, I was going to go to a company where truly they were going to prioritize safety and not pressure us to do things we didn't want to do. He gave me all the right answers. My first day on the job, my big assignment was to take the CEO of a Fortune 500 company from the airport to his office. He got in the car and did not even put on the seatbelt. So, it is important to make sure that you do have alignment in the expectations, in the values. It's hard to find out going into it, but talk to people, listen to people, because you don't want to work for a company that is not going to be supportive of what you're trying to accomplish.
Wow, what a great example also.
What a
Oh my
stupid
goodness.
example.
Yes.
Really.
Really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So for our final question, before we open it up to the students for questions, do you guys have any recommendations for how to stay current? And I know, Kristy, this is something that you and I work on constantly as faculty, but making sure that you really stay current with what is going on in the industry. What are the trends? What are the challenges?
I think we've hit Kurt Lewis hard enough, so definitely
That's
everybody
true.
should be signed
Yes.
up for that by the end of this hour. And again, LinkedIn is a wonderful source to keep very current. As long as if you've identified the people that are involved in the particular area that you want to be in, and that you are, that is kind of the late breaking, and also, the kind of like what we call a weak signal, right? So there may be things that are kind of chatter that don't necessarily make it into business and commercial aviation, or they don't necessarily make it into Aviation Week, but you kind of can get a little sense of what's going on, at maybe that like sub detection level of other things.
Mhm.
So, and then, above that, obviously, I think Aviation Week, AIN, aviation, and what's the one you told me about the other day? Air Current.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Air
Somebody
Current.
did mention the air current. It was in our IEB meeting. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that was you, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think constantly learning, you've got to keep up with what is going on. A magazine I cannot deal without is Aviation Week in Space Technology. You mentioned it, but it is expensive, and I say expensive, it might be $100 a year. But you can also sign up on their webpage and get a lot of free material. And I think if you're going to be in the aviation or aerospace business, you need to keep up with what's going on out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's changing so frequently.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that's important too, as you're going in for an interview, you know, to really understand what the state of the industry is as well.
I agree. And my caution with the popular press, both from a news consumption perspective, but especially from writing your academic papers perspective, is that all sources are not equal. And Joe's Aviation blog is not the same as Aviation Week. It's not the same as C.A.R.E.E.R. So be selective in, there's a lot of aviation safety attracts a lot of hype, and so does AI. There's a lot out there that is from particular perspectives, either because it's a manufacturer that's putting out the information, or an advocate for just plug in this AI system and all of a sudden your problems will be solved. You know, so I think to be cognizant of what the source is, and you know, look deeper, go to those trusted sources. There's things that you're going to find if you read it in those trusted sources that you can really trust that. And like you said, to know that's an excellent interview tip is to know that. And if I can just add one more thing on the two things on the interview topic. One is that know the company. I mean, know the company back and forward, and know the person. If you have access to the names of the people that you're going to be speaking with, know their backgrounds, do your homework, be prepared when they say, do you have any questions? The worst thing that I can't stand is, no, not really. Really? You don't have a single question. You know, so you have to be able to use the time for ask a question as a chance to demonstrate how well you know the company, and how well you know what their challenges are, and what they're facing. And the other thing is to know that you may not know that the interview is the interview. So you may be out to dinner with somebody, and turns out that actually was the job interview, that for the thing that you're applying for a month later, that you didn't even know that that's the person that you interacted with. So just to be aware of that as you're looking to where you want to go. Be aware that I once heard it said, actually it was on the Women in Aviation Leadership course that we held. One of the people who was being interviewed said that when the most important decisions about you are being made, you will not be in the room. So you have to have laid that groundwork ahead of time.
You know, one of our friends who's on our IAB, he's with Airbus, and he said, I consider every meeting to be a job interview, because you never know. You might go to a meeting and 3 months later, somebody say, hey, we were in that meeting together, and we've just had an opening in our company. And so, you know, too, I think it's important to show up turned out nicely. You know, dress nicely. Show up like you really want the job. I think that's we shouldn't have to emphasize that, but I think that's important.
No, it absolutely is. And, you know, for our students that may not know, the IAB is the Industry Advisory Board.
Thank you.
So we work very closely with industry as we are looking at new degree programs, as we are updating our curriculum, because we want to make sure that what we deliver will give you the skills that you need to be successful, not just for that course, but following graduation. So thank you guys. This was such a what a wonderful discussion for our students. I think you've given them some really great tools to help them either get into the aviation safety industry or move up within it. So Arnold, I think we have some time if you'd like to open it up for questions.
We do have some questions in the chat with Dr. Marusek. So just to go back a little bit, there's a lot going on in the chat, but somebody asked, does the NTSB have a regional office in Phoenix, Arizona?
No, the NTSB does not have a regional office in Phoenix. However, they have really 4 regional offices: Washington, D.C., Denver, Seattle, and Anchorage. But a lot of the air safety investigators actually remote work these days. So you might be assigned to the Denver office, but you're still living in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you can't get somewhere from Phoenix, you probably can't get there. So a lot of folks do work remotely.
Good. There's another question. They said, I am wondering how safety and revenue agree with each other, considering the recent safety concerns with Boeing. What will be your comments as to how it is being played out?
So, I mean, I think that there's one of the things that I would hope we would get away from is this idea of a seesaw between profit and safety. The processes that underlie a financially successful company are the same processes that underlie a safe company. So a strong culture, adherence to values, those are the same. Success is success, right? And safety isn't, it's not something you can't go and like, okay, we're going to do safety today, right? Safety emerges as a function of what the company is doing. So to me, ideally, a company that has a long-term, what is going to set the course for long-term safety is also going to set the course for long-term profitability. And I don't want to be naive and say that that they cannot come into opposition sometimes, but they're not inherently in opposition. They really are not. They are inherently two things that come from the same source. So if you've had any statistics, you know, the hidden variable, right? Well, the hidden variable behind profitability and safety is the culture and processes that enable both of them. But one thing I think is really important and part of the function of our safety center, we don't control the Boeing Center for Aviation and Aerospace Safety, which, by the way, is named that because of a gift from the Boeing company, philanthropic gift. But this is an Embry-Riddle function. It's entirely independent Embry-Riddle function. But one of our mandates is to support academic programs. And while we are very much eager to support safety programs, degrees specifically in safety or in aviation, we're also really interested in helping the other parts. Every student in every college and every campus that we have, so 3 campuses, 11 colleges, you know, tens of thousands of students, all impact safety somehow. And we really want to be able to help people understand how the impact of those choices, what kind of behaviors are we incentivizing, our business decisions, what behavior is that incentivizing that will have safety consequences? So it's an excellent question.
Yeah, I say, and I think I'm saying what you just said, but safety and profitability are not dichotomous. They are not on opposite ends of the spectrum. Just look at Boeing. They just posted a $355 million loss for the first quarter. Look what's happened to Boeing stock on let's see, the Friday before the second MAX crash. Their stock was at about 440, and it's not at 440 now. It's about 165. So safety and profitability, they actually work hand in hand. And a good case study on that is Alcoa Aluminum. Paul O'Neill came in and really prioritized safety, and their profitability increased. Their performance, profitability, all measures improved because he really cared for his people.
Culture. Absolutely.
With the ongoing research and implementation of UAS integration into NAS, is there a system available to analyze UAS data on accident or incident as it has been for manned aircraft with the black box?
So there's a couple of parts to that question. When you talk about uncrewed integration, there's the impact of drones on the traditional crewed aircraft. So that's one part of the safety puzzle. And one of the problems early on is in an effort to just collect some data, there was we had a drone sightings database. Turned out not to be the most valid and reliable data because it was just too noisy, too much false, you know, was it a drone? Was it a bird? Was it a plastic bag, a plastic balloon, whatever? So that was a real challenge. Then you're all familiar with NASA's ASRS aviation safety reporting system. So that's been a long source of non-jeopardy reporting for, for pilots, for flight attendants, for maintainers. And so now there's also uncrewed aviators can submit reports about that. And then to the black box point, there's so much telemetry that comes off of these vehicles already. the resident expert here on crash hardened recorders. Part of it is the kinetic energy of the current unmanned systems is not really that sufficient to destroy anything. So you don't really have to have anything kind of hardened right now. So I don't think there's anything in uncrewed systems that is specifically a recorder to collect data for forensic purposes, but there's ways to collect that data to be used forensically, which I hope answers the question.
Okay, we're gonna just close out with one last question. Our guest speakers have another meeting that they need to attend to by 3 p.m. So we're gonna try to be a little mindful of their time. So how does anyone with military background in aviation apply to work for the safety industry, such as Boeing, NTSB, FAA, or even the ICAO with a bachelor's degree in aeronautics?
Yeah, I'm going to toss it to Kristy, but I'm not sure that it necessarily needs to be limited to somebody with a military background. I mean, so Kristy, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're still on active duty, definitely avail yourself of some of the excellent educational opportunities to attend safety school. They're just a whole lot. That's where I was a Coast Guard aviator, and I went to not only to at the time we went to Naval Aviation Safety Officer School, but we went to another school, which is now our competitor, but another excellent program in accident investigation that was from a professional education. So there are those kinds of opportunities if you're still on active duty. You know, safety is something that is so embedded in military aviation operations. The conscious, I'm not saying we always did it right. Believe me. I mean, we had doors would fall off the H-65 all the time. Like, you know, like, well, there's another door that fell off. I mean, you know, so I'm not saying that it was perfect, but it was in everybody's mind. And I think, Bettina, you have the Marine Corps background in aviation. Would you say was your experience as well?
Absolutely. If there are additional billets that you can fill that are safety, typically safety is something where they'll have somebody that's rotating. At least that's what it was, you know, for me when I was in the Marine Corps. But then just kind of seeking out those things. If there's any type of professional education, if you are still pursuing your Bachelor of Science in Aeronautics and you haven't picked a minor, or you have elective credit, you know, you can always choose the safety minor so that you have academic credit to support. I mean, aviation, you know, safety is infused within every element of aviation. So it's really just setting yourself up, especially from a resume and an interview perspective, where you align and you demonstrate that you understand the role of safety within an aviation environment and you have specific skills that you can demonstrate.
And I would just say one caution, please don't put on your resume was squadron platoon commander ComNav Res 4-7. That is meaningless outside. So have somebody read your resume who is not military, who doesn't know the jargon, who has no idea what those things mean, and have them reflect back to you what they think you're trying to say.
Kristy mentioned that we heard that we have to have another meeting. I actually have to go teach a class in accident investigation. It's a professional education class. So if you're seeking to enhance your credentials, we do offer professional education courses here at Embry-Riddle. I just want to end on one thing. I started flying in 1974. I mean, I think I even knew the Wright brothers at one time. When I started, it was the oil embargo. Now, people may not remember the oil embargo, but we had a big oil embargo. It was a recession. The Vietnam War was literally just wrapping up. So there was a glut of pilots coming out of Vietnam that were going to the airlines, but the airlines were furloughing because they were in such bad shape from a recession. Then I got hired by, somebody told me, oh, you'll never get hired by an airline because of that. You know, everybody has 4-engine jet experience and you'll never get hired. I did get hired a few years later as an airline pilot and had a wonderful 24-year career as an airline pilot. Just then another recession, then a controller strike in 1981, right after I got hired. Then another recession, then 9/11. Then, you know, before that was 5 fatal crashes. 2 bankruptcies. Here's my point. The aviation industry is very cyclical. 3 months ago, we would say that, oh my goodness, airlines are hiring like crazy.
Yes.
And now we read that Southwest is going to quit hiring till the end of the year. They're going to lay off 2,000 people. My point is that it is very cyclical. It's up and down. Who would have ever figured 4 years ago, right when we went into COVID, that, you know, when they were laying off people and parking airplanes, that the industry would have rebounded as robustly as it did? Well, it did. So if we're in fact heading for a dip, don't worry about it. Just continue your education, follow those things that you're enjoying doing, and make yourself even a better applicant, a better candidate, so that when things do pick up, assuming they really are headed down just for a bit, we will recover, and we will recover strongly, and we look forward to having you as a part of that system.
Thank you so very much. This was just awesome, outstanding. A special thank you to the Honorable Robert Sumwalt, Dr. Kristy Kiernan. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. To our facilitator, Dr. Tina Burns, thank you so very much. This was just awesome. We might have to do a part 2 at another time, but please give them a round of applause with your emoticons or whatever. But thank you so very much from Embry-Riddle Worldwide, and we look forward to doing this again on behalf of the Career Club.
Thank you,
Thank
Arnold.
you.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great day.